Good morning, and I want to continue our study here in Colossians chapter number 1, and I want to look at what I've entitled as a faithful servant. One of the enjoyable things that I find here in the Word of God is being able to study the lives of various individuals. I find it to be very beneficial and very insightful. Some of them that we read about are well known, and then there are others who are obscure, but they are provided for us in order that we might learn from the example that they set. In some cases, they provide an example for us to follow, and then in other cases, they provide an example for us to avoid. In our text this morning, we find a relatively unknown individual by a man by the name of Epaphras. Epaphras was a believer who, according to Colossians chapter 4 and verse 12, lived in the city of Colossae. He is mentioned in both Colossians and Philemon. Philemon was a master whose servant Onesimus had fled and was seeking restitution. We learn from our text here in verses 7 and 8 that he was the one responsible for taking the gospel to these individuals. Paul also describes him in verse 7 as a fellow servant. I find it very insightful that Paul never once viewed himself as superior to others. He viewed himself instead on a level that was equal with others. But what we learn from Epaphras is that he was a man who was burdened for these individuals, and he resolved to share the gospel with them. The result was they were saved and their lives were transformed. It seems as though it was from his efforts that the church at Colossae actually began. He was also the one who reported to Paul concerning their love that was the result of their salvation. But there's an insightful term that is found for us in verse number 8, where he is described as a faithful minister, one who is a faithful servant. He was a man, we might say, who was simply faithful to what God had called him to do. He was willing to take the gospel message of Jesus Christ to those individuals to whom God led him. And the result was that he had the privilege of leading some to the Lord. Let me challenge you this morning that regardless of whether your task or maybe even your life seems significant or insignificant to you, be faithful. After all, it's required in stewards that a man be found faithful. 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse number 2. Thanks so much for joining. I hope it's been a help to you. I hope it's been an encouragement. Let's go be faithful today. And if you're here in this area, be faithful to church tonight. I hope to see you. If you're not in this area, find a good church where you can be, and be faithful. Serve the Lord. I think it's a great commendation to end a life with the words faithful. God bless. Have a great day. Thanks for joining.